Hi everyone, in this video I will be going through IGCSE Chemistry 0620 questions where students often lose marks, not because they don't know the content, but because they misread or misinterpret the questions. So with the exam just around the corner, I will be covering these common mistakes chapter by chapter so you can better understand what examiners are really asking and avoid the usual traps. Let's get started. Let's take a look at some questions from chapter 1, that is states of matter. We will go through a few examples and talk about how to tackle them correctly. Okay, first question. A student places a gas jar containing ammonia above another jar containing hydrogen chloride. After some time, a white ring forms closer to the HCl jar. Which of the following best explain this observation? If you check this question, you can see that there are two gases that are diffusing with each other, and this question is related to diffusion. And from chapter 1, you will always get one question that will be related to this topic, diffusion. So for that you must have to remember one thing, that is the diffusion rate is inversely proportional to the mass of that compound or mass of that gas. Okay, it's inversely proportional. So many students do the mistake by thinking that it is directly proportional. Higher the mass, higher will be diffusion rate. So this is wrong. Okay, if higher the mass, then the diffusion rate will be slower because they are inversely proportional to each other. And if you see here, the white ring means it is the ring of ammonium chloride, because whenever ammonia and HCl will react, you will get ammonium chloride. So it means the ring is formed near the HCl jar. What does it explain? It explains you that HCl moves a little. If you see a jar and you have HCl here and ammonia here, and you are getting a ring near the HCl, it means HCl travels little whereas ammonia travels more. So what did we get from here? It means that ammonia is lighter in weight. That's why it diffuses faster. Okay, so we have to choose an option in which they are talking about ammonia that has a lighter weight. So the option C, if you see, ammonia has a lower relative molecular mass than HCl and diffuse faster. So this is the right option. So what you have to remember, you have to remember that the mass is inversely proportional to the diffusion rate. So option C is correct. Let's see another question related to diffusion. Sometime you will get the options from the periodic table, and so many students get confused. They think that okay, relative mass is the actual one that is deciding, but they forget that diffusion only occurs in gases and liquids. Okay, so if you see over here, which of the following gas will diffuse fastest in the air? Sometimes students think that sodium, magnesium, and they start looking at the periodic table. Remember that if you see any metal in the question related to diffusion, you have to just ignore them because they are solid at room temperature. So you cannot choose any solid for diffusion. So what you are left behind with, you are only left with two options, that is fluorine and neon. One belongs to group 7 and the other one belongs to group 8. Okay, so if you see the mass in the periodic table, the fluorine has a 19 mass whereas neon has 20. So many students usually choose fluorine in this option. That is wrong. Why wrong? Because you have to remember that these elements in the nature or in the at room temperature, how they are present. In nature, fluorine is present in the form of diatomic molecule. So it means its mass is not 19. Its mass is actually 38. Okay, so the mass of fluorine is 38 whereas neon is 20. Why only 20? Why it's not monoatomic? Because it's a noble gas, and noble gas do not form any molecule. Their electronic configuration is complete. Okay, so which gas will diffuse fastest in the air? Of course it will be neon. Okay, so I already told you, if you see the options of the metals or if you see the option of any solid that you already know in the periodic table that it is solid, okay, especially the metals, then you have to ignore those options. And the remaining option, if you see a element from group 7, then you have to consider it as a diatomic molecule. All group 7 elements are diatomic molecule, okay, and all group 8 elements are are monoatomic. So that's why option D is the right option. Let's see another example. Which of the following gases will diffuse the slowest? Okay, so now you have to check the one which has the highest mass. Okay, highest mass means it will diffuse slower. So potassium and calcium, again you have to reject these options because they both are metals. They will be solid at room temperature. So you have to just ignore them. Now we are just left with chlorine and xenon. So if you see, chlorine is a diatomic molecule and 35.5 is the mass written in the periodic table. So it will be how much? 71. But if you look at for the xenon mass is 131 gram in the periodic table. So who has the highest mass? It is xenon. So option D is the right option. So highest mass, it means it will diffuse the slowest one. So that's why these are the questions that usually students get confused. They usually sometimes choose the Nobel, they compare the Nobel, they forget about the group 7 elements. They think that they are monoatomic, but actually they are diatomic. And another mistake they usually do in the metals, okay? They think that, okay, metal has a smaller mass, so okay, metal can be the option, but it is wrong because they are solid, so you don't have to choose any solid for the diffusion question, okay? I hope this point is clear to you.